connection.
But Cormac gives a universe. In the universe that he describes, in this case, the border area between Texas and Mexico. And I'd like just to read one passage, because from all the pretty horses I can't help it.
Good idea.
Because it's so beautiful. And the leading character, John Grady, at the end witnesses the funeral of his of an old Mexican lady who raised the family. He stood hat in hand over the unmarked earth. This woman who had worked for his family 50 years, she had cared for his mother as a baby, and she had worked for his family long before his mother was born, and she had known and cared for the wild Grady boys who were his mother's uncles and who had all died so long ago, and he stood holding his hat, and he called her his abuela, and he said goodbye to her in Spanish, and then turned and put his hat and turned his wet face to the wind, and for a moment he held out his hands as if to steady himself, or as if to bless the ground or perhaps as if to slow the world that was rushing away and seemed to care nothing for the old and the young, or rich or poor, or dark or pale, or he or she, nothing for their struggles, nothing for their names, nothing for the living or the dead. In 4 days' riding, he crossed the Pecos at Iran, Texas, and rode up to the river breaks, where the pump jacks in the Yates field ranged against the skyline, rose and dipped like mechanical birds, like great primitive birds welded up out of iron by hearsay. By hearsay, listen to that, by hearsay, in a land perhaps where such birds once had been. It's just totally amazing. And then shortly later, the desert he rode was red, and red the dust he raised, the small dust that powered the legs of the horse he rode, the horse he led. In the evening the wind came up and reddened all the sky before him. There were few cattle in that country, because it was barren country indeed, yet he came at evening upon a solitary bull, rolling in the dust against the blood-red sunset, like an animal in sacrificial torment.
Well, I have to.
I think we've set a landmark here. Werner Herzog reading Cormac McCarthy.
I just want to say, if that was the purpose of my event, was to bring Werner to read Cormac, it's amazing.
It cannot get any better. And for decades, we have not had this language in American literature.
Well, thank you, Werner. You're very kind. I think we should pick on Lawrence. Now, I've just finished his book.
Well, let me.
And I have this.
Yeah, let's